Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 14, Ideal Family Life, text number 11. Asvagande vasayibyak kaman sam vi bhajet yata apyekam atmano daram marinam swatva griho yataha ashvagante vasayibyak kaman sambhibajed yata apyekam atmano dharam narinam swatva griho yataha.
Ashvagante vasabhibhyah kamansa vibhajit yatha apyekam atmano dharam inam sattva graho yataha. Ashvagante vasayibhyah kaman sambhibhajit yatha apyekam atmano dharam inam sattva graho yataha.
Mataji.
Ashvagante vasayibhyah kaman sambhibhajit yatha apyekam atmano dharam inam sattva graho yataha.
Even up to Shwa, the dog, Aga, sinful animals or living entities. Ante avasayibya, unto the chandalas, the lowest of men, dog eaters and hog eaters. Oh, well, it's nice if you're eating ham or something. It can also be called a chandala. So there are also chandalas in the West. Kaman, the necessities of life. Sambhibhajet, should divide. Yata, as much as deserved. Api, even. Ekam, one. Atmanaha, own. Dharam, the wife. Narinam, of the people in general. Svatva grihaha, the wife is accepted as being identical with oneself. Yataha, because of which. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Dogs, fallen persons, and untouchables, including chandalas, dog eaters, should all be maintained with their proper necessities, which should be contributed by the householders. Even one's wife at home with whom one is most intimately attached should be offered for the reception of guests, people in general. Purport, although in modern society, the dog is accepted as part of one's household paraphernalia, in the Vedic system of household life, the dog is untouchable. Could you imagine that, telling people, don't touch your dog? The dog comes to lick you. Get away from me, you mutt. People think you're cruel, mean, barbaric, actually. Uncivilized. You don't kiss your dog. Ooh, foofy. The dog licks its behind, cleans it, and then it licks you. Ah, oh, you're so sweet. Outcasts, as mentioned here, a dog may be maintained with proper food, but it cannot be allowed to enter one's house, what to speak of the bedroom. Outcasts or untouchable chandalas should also be provided with the necessities for life. The word used in this connection is yatha, which means as much as deserved. The outcasts should not be given money with which to indulge in more than they need. Otherwise, they may misuse it. At the present moment, for example, low-class men are generally paid quite amply. But instead of using their money to cultivate knowledge and advance in life, such low-class men use their extra money for wine drinking and similar sinful activities. As mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 4.13, Chatur Vanyamaya Shvistam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. There must be 4 divisions of human society according to the work and qualities of men. Men with the lowest qualities cannot do any work that require higher intelligence. However, though such a division of men must exist according to their quality and work, it is suggested herewith that everyone must have the necessities of life. The communists of the present day are in favor of supplying the necessities of life to everyone, but they consider only the human beings and not the lower animals. The Bhagavatam's principles are so broad, however, that it recommends that the necessities of life be supplied to everyone, man or animal, regardless of good or bad qualities. The idea of giving even one's wife to the service of the public is that one's intimate relationship with his wife or one's excessive attachment for his wife, by which one thinks his wife to be his better half or to be identical with himself, must gradually be given up. As formerly suggested, the idea of ownership, even of one's family, must be abandoned. The dream of material life is the cause of bondage in the cycle of birth and death, and therefore one should give up this dream. Consequently, in the human form of life, one's attachment for his wife should be given up as suggested herein. Ashvagante Visayibhya Kaman Samvibhajet Yata Apyekam Atmano Dharam Nrinam Swat Griho Yataha. Dogs, fallen persons, and untouchables, including chandalas, dog eaters, should all be maintained with their proper necessities, which should be contributed by the householders. Even one's wife at home, with whom one is most intimately attached, should be offered for the reception of guests and people in general. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatunde Ve Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Sakara. Varnashram is a reflection of the spiritual world. When the spiritual world is properly reflected, rather than perversely reflected, in the material world, it's called varnashram. And by following the principles of varnashram, one can gradually obtain the qualities that will be manifested in the spiritual world. Or at least one will become free from the material qualities that prevent one from actually understanding what the spiritual world is. So here it says that one has to give up one's attachment for a wife. Now, the wife or the husband and the children, the family, are generally the center of enjoyment in the material world. And that enjoyment creates the attachment, and the attachment creates the tendency to want to enjoy. One becomes attached to something when one finds that it gives one pleasure. So in the material world, the possibility of finding pleasure is generally through sense gratification and mental speculation, which is another form of sense gratification. When people can't find pleasure in gross sense gratification, then they try to find it in subtle mental speculation, imagining sense gratification, which is a form of speculation. And the only way of getting free from it is, as Rupa Goswami said, that Nibbandha Krishna Sambandhe Krishna Vairagi Uchite. That one may try to give up material sense gratification. That's Nibbandha, what was the first one? Anyabhila, no, that's not. Shunyam Jnana Karma Nirabridam. Is that right? Anyabhila, no, that's the other word. That Nibbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatarham Upayunjitehe Nibbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagya Uchite. That one may try to give up material sense gratification, Anasaktasya Vishayan Yataha Upayunjitaha, but still one will become attached to these desires. Trying to give up something artificially makes us even more attached to it. It's one of the levels of bhajana kriya, anishtita bhajana kriya. It's called Vishaya Sangara, war against sense gratification. And that the very thing that we're trying to give up, by detaching ourselves from artificially, we become more attached to it. We say, I don't want this, I don't want, every time I see a lady, I spit. So one is walking around spitting everywhere. And thinking about women as he's spitting, he becomes more and more attached to. Meditating on women that I'm giving up. I don't want them. I don't want this. I don't want that. That's what you become more and more attached to, that, this and that, what you're trying to give up. If you're fasting on a fast day, and you're not really trying to engage the mind in Krishna consciousness, then one will see food everywhere on a fast day. Everything will look like chocolate or vanilla. But that's not renunciation, and that's called material attachment. Or as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, what does he say in Bhagavad Gita? He says a lot of things in Bhagavad Gita. But specifically in I guess it's the third chapter. Beginning of the third chapter. Kamendriyani samyamya yukta sitamapra vasheyas yendriyani tasya pragyapatishita. Kamendriyani samyamya yaste manasa smaran indriyartam vimudatma mityatras uchite. That one who gives up the objects of sense gratification, karmendriyani samyamya yukta sitamapra. No, actually. Karmendriyani samyamya Yaste manasa smaran, but whose mind dwells on the sense object. Indriyartam vimudatma, he's certainly vimudatma, fooling himself. Or indriyatma mityatra means actually becoming dishonest. So uchite, he's called a pretender, a dishonest person. So externally, one may try to renounce the objects of the senses, but when the mind dwells on the sense objects, he's certainly a pretender, and he's fooling himself. On the other hand, if one engages the active organs in works of devotion without attachment, that is, and controls the senses by the mind, and engages the active organs in works of devotion, is certainly better. Yasva indriyani manasa niyamya terjana karmendriya karma yogam asakta sat vishishite, certainly better. Yeah. So the idea is if we utilize something in Krishna's service, then it'll help us remember Krishna. And by remembering Krishna, then if we actually can feel Krishna, feel his presence, then we feel ecstasy, transcendental pleasure. As our senses become purified, then everything becomes spiritualized in our consciousness. In other words, we see everything as spiritual, which means everything becomes non-different from Krishna. And Krishna is all attractive and all pleasureful. So everything, with all our senses, everything becomes a source of pleasure to the soul. Yaswendriyani manasa niyamya retarjana. So, niyamya retarjana, one has to regulate the senses by engaging them in Krishna's service. Then one will actually come to the platform of Krishna consciousness. And in Krishna consciousness, because of the higher taste, one will not be attracted to trying to enjoy the material energy. After all, the material energy is just different combinations of gross and subtle material elements, which are not enjoyable for the soul, any more than a shadow. If you find a beautiful shadow and you embrace it, then the only actual happiness you get from embracing a shadow is in the mind. It's just a mental concoction that you're getting some happiness. Similarly, most of the material world is just a mental happiness, an idea that we're going to enjoy. The soul is never really enjoying very much, but he has this idea he's going to enjoy. And that's what keeps him entangled in the material world. That when one is actually so-called enjoying, there's not much enjoyment. It's very flickering, chapala sukha. But the idea of enjoying the future can go on eternally. And Maya never says, well, you try to enjoy yesterday, it wasn't very enjoyable. Maya says, no, actually this time it's going to be really divine. This time it's going to be the real thing. You just have to have faith. So Maya is always advertising. Come and enjoy, come and enjoy. Oh, I'm suffering. Oh, that's all right. I'm sorry, Don't worry. Next time will be better. So similarly, if one develops the taste in the Varnashram system that the wife, one's paraphernalia are all utilized for the benefit of others, then when others become pleased, then one actually becomes pleased. In other words, if one is not pleasing to others, is one who's actually watching others suffering indifferently, then one will actually suffer also. Then one will actually, within oneself, become either dull, like a tree, so that one doesn't feel other sufferings, or else one will actually suffer. Or if one is on the transcendental platform, it is said, Atmopamyena sarvatra sampashati orjuna sukham vadukam yogi paramam mataha. That he's a true yogi or Arjuna who can see the true equality of all living entities, both in their happiness and distress. So an actual yogi is able to understand what the real happiness and distress is, that happiness is to remember Krishna, and people are suffering because they've forgotten Krishna. And to help them remember Krishna, then part of that is to give them something to eat. If someone is hungry, they're not going to think about anything else except for eating. Now, if you fill their stomach up, still, if they don't become Krishna conscious, then they won't make much progress. But at least in the Vedic culture, everyone should get the opportunity, because even a dog, if it lives in a peaceful society, then it'll come back eventually through the process of evolution and eventually take a human form of life. So even the animals should be maintained so they can peacefully go through their cycle of evolution so they can come to the human form of life. Killing the animals, although the soul doesn't die, means that they have to come back in the same form and try to go through the evolutionary process. And therefore it's sinful stopping their progress towards the human form of life, where they get the opportunity to become Krishna conscious. So that's the household duty, to see everyone has an opportunity to progress. Progressive may mean just giving something to eat, hopefully prasadam, so they can live out their lives and come back to a higher, make some progress. On the other hand, if one is engaged in giving people sinful food, then one who's actually sending them back into the lower species of life. Of course, giving a dog meat, the dog doesn't get karma for eating meat. It already has enough karma. It doesn't have to worry getting any more. But generally, even the householders don't generally give meat to the animals. And for the human beings, if you give them sinful food, then they'll actually degrade them, and you'll become responsible for their degradation. Therefore, the householders, they generally give in the Vedic culture prasad. And especially sannyasis or brahmacharis, they generally go to Brahmin houses where they're sure to get food offered to the Shalagram Shila rather than the goddess Durga or something. So some discrimination is there. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda went to one sannyasi's house. Nityananda said, here's a sannyasi's house. They were wandering in Abadui. Here's a sannyasi's house. And they enter into the sannyasi's house, and they saw he was married to a sannyasini. So immediately Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's suspicion was aroused. And this householder couldn't give them much to eat, but he wanted to give them happiness. Would you like some happiness? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Lord Nityananda, what is he talking about? So Lord Nityananda said he wants to give us some wine. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ran out of the house with Lord Nityananda and dove into the Ganges to purify himself. So it's not that every householder in the Vedic culture is necessarily pious, but therefore those who are begging, they generally go to pious places to get something to eat, so that they could perform devotional service and continue on with spiritual progress. And if the householders are greedy, they don't give anything to the sannyasis or to the renunciates, then the result is that they come back as a snake in their next lifetime. Therefore, everyone has a responsibility. It's not that we can do whatever we like here and there is not going to be any result. This is the atheistic mentality. Therefore, everyone who has a certain propensity to different degrees of sense gratification, they're divided in the Vedic culture in different levels, and they have different duties. The householders who have a tendency to want to accumulate, want a house and accumulate different goods and family, etc., etc., they have to share these things because everything is meant for Krishna service. Nothing is actually meant for their sense gratification. Of course, there may be some sense gratification involved, but that sense gratification has to be utilized in Krishna service. Otherwise, one becomes entangled. Or Prabhupada was visiting one householder wealthy Indian man, and the Indian man with some brahmacharis, and the Indian man brought in his wife and said, "This is my wife." And he brought in his daughters, "This is my daughters, this is my son, this is my relatives, this is my grand." And Prabhupada turned to the brahmacharis and sannyasis and said, "This is my sex life." He was so proud of everything he had, but he didn't realize that this is my entanglement in the material world. This is the chains that will bring me back into the material world for another birth, maybe another species of life. Therefore, everything has to be utilized in Krishna service. Of course, Prabhupada was kind. He visited such householders. Maybe sometimes they became life members, but generally speaking, their goal of life was not to go back to the spiritual world. It's to accumulate more and more family members, dynasty, more and more wealth to provide for the dynasty, houses, clothes, everything, transportation, to show that actually I become a lord of the material world, that I'm greater than an ordinary person. I'm not an ordinary person. I am the Lord. Ishvaraham aham bhogi, siraham balavan. See how much I'm enjoying. To the point that Prabhupada said that there was one man, he was an old man, he had like 5 wives, and he gave each one of them a big house to live in with servants and everything, and they all had their boyfriends with their own children from the boyfriends. But he was happy just to go around to the houses pretending that he was actually the lord of the house. So this is called mental concoction. But that's what the material world is. It's just a place of a big dream or nightmare, depending how you look at it, where people are just imagining that they're going to enjoy, or that they are the lords of the material energy. And therefore, they have to come back again and again, trying to become again the Lord in all the different species of life. I'm the queen bee. I'm not just an ordinary bee. Look at me. I'm the head bee. And all these other bees, they bow down and flap their wings to me. I'm the queen of the ants. I guess all the other ants are my workers. See, I have millions of workers working for me. And I don't even pay them. See what a nice ant I am. Powerful. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Yes.
Maharaj, you said that devotees in general don't give meat to their pet animals, but I know some devotees that do. Maybe not directly fresh meat, but pet biscuits, which are made of meat. Do they create some karma for devotees who give?
Anyhow, I don't want to comment on that. I mean, I think it was mentioned here that dogs are untouchable. So if someone decided to make friends with a dog, then, they should read the Bhagavatam.
How about other pet animals? Are they also untouchable? Cats, hamsters, parakeets, are they also untouchable? I have a cat at home. She likes to sit in my lap while I'm chanting.
Well, if you were a mouse, she'd eat you. Hopefully you don't come back as a mouse. You love the cat so much, you want to give her food. You sacrifice yourself in your next lifetime. No, I mean, making friends with an animal in the city, where it's completely unnecessary. Maybe in the country, you may have a dog who lives outside, who may do some, has some service, taking care of the sheep or something. But having a dog as your best friend, or even a cat, cats they're really envious creatures. They're completely selfish. Generally speaking, they'll only purr to get something from you. Or else they'll show their teeth, you rascal. Anyhow, whatever, we should chant Hare Krishna, and then maybe Krishna will reveal these things to us. I had cats and dogs, so I know their mentality. I had some Siamese cats. They are really selfish guys. They're completely egotistical. You know who I am? No, who are you? I'm a Siamese. Be careful when you touch me. Bow down. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Going to Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande.